I'm sure most of you on this call have had some experience using total materia in the past. So apologies in advance if I am repeating myself. But those who have not, I'm sure everyone as well knows that it's very important to have reliable material information when dealing with selecting a new material. And of course, material selection is getting more difficult due to all the different research that we've been doing in the last 100 years. And that is, of course, now dealing with compliance. You have to know that the material you're choosing is compliant to certain regulations, not just because all the different fines you might be getting when choosing a material that might not be compliant in a certain country, but of course, making something that does not have as much human toxins as it should, of course. Choosing greener and more sustainable materials. Of course, there's a lot of different incentives of choosing greener materials, and that could be due to tax brackets. It could be, of course, just helping the environment as a whole. And having these two different topics in place before you're going through your whole material selection process could be very useful, of course. Supply chain, making sure that you're finding the appropriate materials in the countries of choice. Quality. Simulation, so limiting the amount of material tests. And as you see through the circle here, material selection came last. But of course, you want to go through all these different subjects before you come to a block. So let's say you went through the material selection process on first going through selecting the material, going through simulations, quality checks, supply chain, making sure, yes, all of these checks went in place, but you could find a greener alternative, or even checking at the end, oh, this material might not be compliant to a specific regulation or a country we're selling our product to. And that's why we created Total Materia. As most of you know, or you might have already used Total Materia before, that would be our Horizon solution. Horizon is rebranded, so now everyone who has used Total Materia in the past will be starting to use Horizon. And that's where you have access to over 700,000 material designations coming from 80 plus standards and thousands of producer data sheets. Some of you might know about Integrator. This is where you could add in your own internal material information connected to the 700,000 material designations we have in Horizon. But of course, you want to deliver approved material information to designated teams, be able to integrate with your CAD, C8 software, PLM, and making sure you have a single source of truth in the company. Of course, sometimes you might have some missing properties, and that's why we created Predictor. This is where you could quickly predict material information, and we're going to go a couple of different examples later on in the presentation. And finally, connecting compliance and sustainability. So you could validate against today's and tomorrow's regulations, find greener alternatives during your material selection process, and actually creating and calculating different LCA and CO2 values. And all of that is connected in Total Materia. So before I go into all the different solutions and how all these different products could help out, I'm just going to release a quick poll that will help us see what subject you're most interested in. So if you want to quickly just do that, that would be great. So we know if we connect with you, if we should talk about, compliance and sustainability, materials management, and all of the rest, that would be super helpful. And of course, if you don't feel inclined to answer, please do not, don't feel obligated to. So I think everyone has answered in the poll now. You could answer you could have multiple answers as well. But yeah, I really appreciate it. And don't worry, we'll connect with you later on as well. And I will end the poll now so we could actually get into why we came here today, to see how materials information could connect with design, sustainability, and innovation. So as most of you know, Horizon is our most comprehensive materials information tool and selection tool. So besides just having access to a lot of different material information, you have the ability to identify materials, select materials, find global alternatives. So if you're creating a product in the US as well as in China, you could find those easy global alternatives right away, have access to a bunch of reference data, as well as the advanced materials properties. We know that it takes a lot of time and effort to test different materials. We have a big reference database with about 100,000 advanced properties and their curves. Of course, you want to have different tools to find and compare options, clear and easy methods to understand, enable for you and the team to decide and share all those material decisions. And with all of that, that's where Horizon comes into play. As I mentioned, we cover over 80 standard organizations and 37,000 standards, thousands of producer data sheets. And now let's get into how all of that looks like. So mind you, where you see Total Materia now, that will be rebranded to Horizon in the next couple of weeks. We're also coming out with a new website. But let's now go into Horizon and see how we could search for different materials, all the different material information we have, how you could compare those materials and find equivalents, and double checking if the material is compliant as well. So at the top here, you can see all our different modules. Those are different data sets, and we'll, if you want your own demo, we'll go over all of that. And we also have different search capabilities as well. Quick search, advanced search, and searching through a standard number. So now we're just going over the different ways you could utilize our quick search. In the material designation search bar over here, this is where you should type in your material designation, but you could add in different filters at the bottom as you saw. So now we're searching for 304, chose 304 icy. And on the right-hand side, you could see all the different properties we do cover for this particular material. So that's metallography information, stress strain curves, as I mentioned, those advanced material properties, welding information. We do update this database once a month, but also if there's any material information you would like us to add, cover different producers for non-metallic materials, as well as metallic standards, you let us know, and we'd be happy to add in more information. And what the best part is, with all the information we do have, there's an easy way to filter through all that data, and we do separate our information in different conditions, and that could go from temperature, from different references, heat treatments, forms, and all of that is separated and easy to navigate when you go through Horizon. So now we're just selecting a condition here, pre-selecting the temperature, and then we have two diagrams, tensile and yield strength. That's this example. You could actually compare the diagrams as well. You could add your diagrams and build a report if you want to share that information with different team members, which is pretty great as well. And also export the information. So if you want to export that information to ANSYS, we also cover 26 other formats. You could do so fairly quickly. Just select all those conditions, all the values, and you'll get your XML file at the bottom, and then you'd be good to go. Also, finding global equivalents is very difficult sometimes, but we actually have a cross-reference table, and there's different equivalency categories to that cross-reference table. But most importantly, you could find official equivalents to, let's say, the GB standard. So a material in China, a standardized material. You could quickly compare these two materials to make sure that, okay, this official equivalent makes sense on a condition level and such. You could add all these materials, create a list of them in case you want a second opinion with someone else. So you could save this list of materials and actually send it over to whoever has total material access. So it could even be a supplier. It could even be a partner of yours. As long as they have total material access, they could look into that. And the best part is from this point on, you could compare these materials as well. So now, if you want to search for materials based on a certain property criteria, you might not know your material designation. You could add up to 200 mechanical and physical properties. As you see here, even check out, okay, does this material have a heat treatment diagram too? But nevertheless, you could also load up a pre-saved entries as well. You can see we got a couple of different property criteria here. And if you would like to compare these materials, again, you just have to go through the necessary steps, put them in our list builder. You could double check even from here on out, okay, what is the minimum, the maximum tensile strength, the different ranges, which is great. And most importantly, comparing these materials. You could compare them side by side. Through a properties comparison. Right here, you could even create different radar charts as well. And also create an be looking charts, not ash be chart, but ash be looking charts as well to compare all these materials. And quickly check if these materials are compliant with specific regulations. REACH, ROS, we cover over 100 different those reference data points as well in more specific detail. But of course, if you want to go into further detail on Horizon, as I mentioned, you could always let us know. But we do offer single user to corporate licenses. But of course, we always get that question of how do we add our own information into Total Materia, or what we say Horizon now? You might have some approved materials. You want to manage the usership to make sure that the material information people are using is approved by senior members. You might have custom exports, your own substance and compliance data, legacy information, test data integration. You're spending tons of money on that. API connectivity and different options on the IT front. And you want to make sure you're integrating all your material information into different systems like Team Center, 3D Experience, and different ERP systems. And that's where Integrator comes to play. And that could be your private materials database. And we sell it on an enterprise license. So anyone in the organization could have access to these. To this information. Sorry, I was just told that my audio is breaking up. I apologize for that. Everything should be working, but again, I apologize for that if I keep breaking up. And as one would say, the most important capabilities of a materials management system could be the following: reusable and custom taxonomy for your own materials organization, material imports so you don't have to add in all the material information one by one, live links to copy the data from Total Materia, which is Horizon, define properties that are unique to your business and your use cases, easy bulk expert data. So then you could connect all that material information to Windchill, to Teamcenter, to 3D Experience. And of course, at the end of the day, you want your users to be confident in the material selection. You want them to go in and out of the system in a couple of moments rather than spending tons of time searching for data, either that might not be reliable on Google or in different sources. And this is how you could connect our reference data as well as different reference data to your internal data sets. So this is the home screen to our Integrator demo system. Simply, to access reference data, you would just switch the toggle to Horizon. And if you want to just make sure people are using your own material information, you could add in different user capabilities and accesses. But if you want someone to just be able to access your materials information, you could do so as well. You can see the connection here. I searched for Inconel 718 into the material designation bar, and I could pull out a list if I do have those access rights for our internal material information, as well as all the different reference data and proprietary information out there. And most importantly, you could copy information, let's say found from Inconel 718 into your internal material as well. So this system is highly customizable. I would really suggest you talk to your materials experts to really understand what you're trying to achieve and how we can help with that. And how does this connect to design and simulation? Total Materia provides reliable approved materials to the software, but how? Firstly, we have Horizon, and as I mentioned, we could export information to over 26 different formats. That includes SolidWorks, Abacus, ANSYS, Siemens, and so on and so forth. But also, Integrator could help with one-click predefined exports, bulk exports, to bulk export your whole library rather than material one by one, which further helps the connection to PLM and ERP. And of course, documented RESTful APIs, so you can maneuver and play around with the information that you've been collecting for quite some time. So speak to your material experts. If this is a initiative that's coming around in the company, please let us know and we'd be happy to help out. So now, as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, we now have to take care of compliance and sustainability when selecting different materials. And that's why we created Greenline. Greenline was created last year. And what you could do with Greenline now is, of course, always check out the substance list and the composition data for all the regulations. But now what you could do is do some life cycle assessments. Of course, verify against different regulations, bill of materials assessments, so you don't have to add in a material one by one into our compliance assessment tool. You could assess, up to 1,000 materials and even more into an Excel sheet, compare materials and their compliance statuses, and find equivalent materials that might be compliant, and also share all those links and create reporting. And just for everyone to know, we created a new tool called Carbon Footprint, which could be a key contributor to your journey to net zero. And why we created this is that when we came out with Greenline and our LCA selection tool, a lot of people were asking, we need to assess our CO2-based detailed cradle-to-gate CO2 assessments for our supply chain and our material selection process. So we heard, and now we were able to create that, and hopefully that could help you calculate your CO2 values of certain materials and make sure you do these proper assessments before making the final selection. And that's where Greenline, our complete tool, comes in. We have bill of materials, compliance assessments, LCA and CO2 calculations all in one spot. So this is a quick screenshot of our bill of materials assessment tool where you could assess multiple regulations at once, compliance assessor to make sure that the materials you're choosing one by one are compliant to specific regulations, and also our LCA calculations tool, as well as our carbon footprint tool, where you could now add it different manufacturing, processing, and transportation criteria. And up here is just a quick example of our LCA calculation for human toxic levels. So now you know from the beginning of your journey how these materials are on a compliance front and on a sustainability calculations front. And as you would have guessed it, speak to your compliance and sustainability teams and connect with us. And of course, we could go into more detailed demo. Just wanted to quickly put what we could do out there. And if we could help, please let us know, and we would love to do so. And finally, now we have our last bit. What happens when you're missing information? And that's where Predictor comes into play. So sorry, this description is wrong. That's the Integrator description. But what that description should be saying is, you have your reference data in Horizon, a library of 700,000 materials. Then you have Integrator, where you could add in all your internal material information, and with green line checking if they're compliant or sustainable. But finally, what happens when you don't have that information? That's where Predictor, so our machine learning algorithm tool that helps predicting properties, can help you. And this is how it works. So let's go through this example. So I'm using Horizon here to identify a material based on a chemical composition that I have from beforehand. So I'm using this tool, identify the material, this GB material, and I see there's no physical properties, but I need physical properties for a certain simulation. Now what I could do is go to Predictor. I could re-add the compositions here to identify the material, use that information, select my machine learning algorithm tool, select the property I would like to predict. So here I am predicting modulus elasticity from a certain temperature. So negative 200 degrees to 330. And I could predict those material properties